The Toy Story franchise has a lot of villains, but who's the most evil? In this video, let's take a closer look and figure out who stands out as the most wicked. Let's start with Sid Phillips from the first movie. He is just a young boy, but he has a pretty messed up hobby. He enjoys destroying toys. Unlike Andy, who loves and takes care of his toys, Sid is the complete opposite. Now, Sid isn't evil in the traditional sense. He's just a kid who doesn't know how to appreciate his toys. However, some of the things he does are pretty terrible when you think about it from a toy's point of view. For starters, he straps a Combat Carl action figure to an explosive, all for the sake of having fun. Then, he goes on to dismember and mutate his toys, turning them into weird Frankenstein-like creations. He also tortures Woody, attaches Buzz to a rocket, and even scares his sister by messing with her doll. From the perspective of the toys, these actions are nothing short of horrific. But again, he is just a kid who doesn't really know any better. In the end, when Woody and the other toys manage to scare him into changing his ways, it's suggested that Sid may never hurt a toy again. So while what he did was certainly terrible, especially from the toys' point of view, Sid was just a child and his actions weren't driven by true malice. Compared to some of the other villains in the Toy Story universe, he really isn't all that much of a threat. Next up is Al McWhiggin from Toy Story 2. He's the greedy toy collector who owns Al's Toy Barn and plays a villainous role in the movie. While he's not exactly the main antagonist, he definitely fits the bill as a villain. His bad actions include stealing toys and illegal trading. Unlike Sid though, Al isn't doing it out of ignorance. He knows exactly what he's doing. When it comes to Woody, he sees the cowboy doll as nothing more than a way to make a quick buck. He isn't driven by pure malice like other villains, his motivation is greed. He's a selfish businessman who only cares about cashing in on valuable toys. In a way, Al isn't truly evil in the same sense as some others, but he certainly brings a lot of trouble to Woody and his friends because of his obsession with profit. Now, let's talk about Stinky Pete, who is considered the main villain in Toy Story 2. At first, he seems like a kind and wise mentor to Woody. But as the story unfolds, his true nature comes to light. His evil actions are far more harmful than Al's. He tries to manipulate Woody into going to Japan, and he gaslights Woody into thinking that Andy will eventually outgrow him and that he belongs in a museum. He doesn't stop there. He attempts to sabotage Woody's rescue, tries to force Jessie and Bullseye to go to Japan against their will, and even attacks Buzz and reopens an old rip on Woody's arm with his pickaxe. His motivations are rooted in bitterness. He was never loved by a child, which has made him resentful of all the toys that have been cherished and played with. His manipulative nature, combined with his willingness to hurt others for his own gain, makes him far darker than Al or Sid. Unlike Al, who is just driven by greed, and Sid, who is simply a misguided child, Stinky Pete is a villain with deeper emotional scars and a much more dangerous agenda. His actions are fueled by resentment and a deep-seated desire to get back at the world, making him a far more menacing figure in the Toy Story universe. Next, let's take a look at Lotso from Toy Story 3. And I have to say, he's easily one of the darkest villains the Toy Story franchise has ever seen. He rules over Sunnyside Daycare like a dictator, treating the toys like they're beneath him. He decides which toys get treated well and which ones are left to suffer. His evil actions include lying to the new toys, sending them to the toddler room where they're constantly mistreated, and even brainwashing Big Baby and the other toys into following his cruel rule. He also gaslights Buzz by resetting him, turning him into a mindless enforcer for his regime. But perhaps the most heartless thing he does is abandon Woody and the gang, leaving them to burn in the incinerator, even after they've saved him. Lotso's backstory reveals that he wasn't always this way. In fact, he was once loved by his owner, but when he was replaced, he felt betrayed. Instead of moving on from the hurt, he turned his heartbreak into cruelty, making others suffer just because he did. Now, let's talk about Gabby Gabby from Toy Story 4. She is the main antagonist in this movie, but she doesn't possess the same kind of malice as Lotso. Rather, she's manipulative and obsessive. Her main goal is to get Woody's voice box so she can finally feel loved by a child. Her bad actions include kidnapping Forky to lure Woody into her trap, trying to manipulate him into giving up his voice box, and using her creepy ventriloquist henchmen to chase and intimidate the other characters. However, Gabby Gabby's story is more tragic than villainous. She's not truly evil, she just wants to be loved. Unlike Lotso, who is driven by hatred and bitterness, Gabby's actions are motivated by her desire for acceptance. And by the end of the movie, she finds a child who accepts her, showing that she was never truly evil. She was just desperate. So, after looking at all the villains in the Toy Story franchise, I think the most evil one is pretty clear. It's Lotso. The reason why is simple: he's pure malice. He enjoys seeing others suffer and never seeks redemption even when given the chance. He throws away any opportunity to be better, choosing to stay cruel instead. He creates a totalitarian regime at Sunnyside, ensuring that certain toys are mistreated constantly. He brainwashes toys to keep them under his control, and his most infamous act, abandoning Woody and the others to die in the incinerator, which just reinforces that he's the most heartless villain of them all.
Just push it! Push it! Push it! Where's your kid now, Sheriff? No!
So without a doubt, Lotso stands out as the most evil villain in the Toy Story franchise.